it's your girl Jade here, and I am on my way into the local town to speak to some of our young people about hate crime. So we want to know if they know what a hate crime is, if they know what a hate incident is, and what their opinions are on the subject. So let's go and see what they have to say. Do you know what a hate crime is?
Yes, I think I have an idea of a hate crime. It could come in ethnicity, people who don't like your group, gang-related, culture-related. Yes.
A hate crime is, I would say, attacking someone based on their image, on their colour of their skin, and their sexuality.
I think it's just basically when you just commit a crime to someone, murder someone, and with no reason you just hate the person, but because of that colour or something, or just.
If you were experiencing a hate crime, would you report it to the police?
Definitely, because that's like saying if someone was being racist towards me, I'm not just gonna sit there. Yeah. Or if I was getting attacked for being gay or something like that, I wouldn't just sit there. I would want to report it.
So working with young children myself, managing a children's home, I've noticed that we have a big barrier between the home and the authorities. Sometimes we would ask the police or the ambulance service to help us, and we don't always get the support we need. So because of that, from that experience, I feel as if I wouldn't report it. I would handle it in-house.
What would I gain from telling the police? What would I gain from telling someone about it? It's not. People are different. Me, it wouldn't affect me, so why would I tell the police?
Yeah, I would, because I don't need to be I don't need to feel uncomfortable because of someone. Yeah, I'd rather report the person to the police instead than jeopardise my own probably health or my living or something.
Even if I do, I don't think they would do anything, to be honest. I feel like they wouldn't see it as a crime, as in to society, because it happens a lot, but they don't see it as a threat and a danger to our youth and our mental health.
What barriers then do you believe people face when reporting hate crime?
Because it could be a lot of racism going on and all of that. And police don't really come to, other coloured people very quick. So as a coloured person, we tend to take things into our own hands.
I remember there's this one time I must have told my friend that I was bi, and all of a sudden her and her friends were getting onto me because they don't do that. Yeah. They're because they're Asian, they can't do that. Yeah. But obviously I was just I can't really do anything. If I go to the feds or the police and tell them, this is going to happen, I don't think they're going to do anything.
And do you feel that there's enough support and awareness for the local community regarding this topic?
Nope, not at all. The community could do play a better role, a better figure, support us more when it comes to this hate crime.
There's a lot of awareness, simply because we see it, whether we want to see it or not. As soon as you come out into the community, for example, Luton Town, you would see someone being assaulted or being abused, either verbally or racially.
Yeah, I think there's enough there. I think there is enough. I haven't actually experienced hate crime before, so I don't really know. Well, I think there's enough, I reckon.
What do you think can be done better?
Maybe protests, standing out more, letting people say what they want to say, protesting, having a word to say, because if you don't, then obviously it's going to be kept quiet.
There's no solution to it by telling the police. Maybe it raises awareness, but there's no actual solution to it.
Hi, it's your girl Jade, and you are watching Youth Voices, and I am joined with Festus Akinbosoye, who is the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Well done with the surname, by the way. Good job. Yeah,
man, have to. I think it's important. I think it's really important.
I agree.
Back in the day, some people, the teachers, didn't know how to pronounce people's names. I think they have to make sure. Today, we'll be speaking about hate crime, what hate crime is, how we can actually improve the reporting of hate crime as well. So the first question I guess I'm going to ask you is, what is a hate crime? Could you explain for the people that might not know?
The thing about hate crime is that for some people, what you would consider to be a hate crime could be somebody else. Somebody might consider it to be a bit of joke. Mm-hmm. And this is where some people become quite unstuck. But there are some things that we all know is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
So picking on someone, for example, because of their protected characteristic, for example, because of their religion, because of the color of their skin, or their sexuality, for example, those things are potentially will fall under hate crime legislation. But there's a wide debate, in society at the moment around what is and what isn't. If I was to say something to upset you and I hurt your feelings, does that constitute as a hate crime? So but in Bedfordshire Police, we do take this quite seriously, and I believe we've seen an increase in some of the reports of hate crime. The challenge is almost proving that it happened and being able to get a conviction.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's something that actually happened where it's on the street, there were witnesses, then of course the police will be able to investigate that. But it is a crime that can be absolutely devastating.
Yeah.
To those who experience it because they are who they are. I can't change the color of my skin. So when you pick on me for just being who I am, the impact can be lifelong on the victims.
So with regards to what you were saying, like you said, some people do think it's a joke, and then it's also about, proving it and actually showing that it is a hate crime. Something that I've learned recently is like there's also hate incidents, and there's a fine line. So where is it when they cross that line of it being a hate incident to a hate crime as well? Because I feel like there's quite a fine line.
In police in general, so I'm not a police officer, I just oversee the police force. But one thing that I do know, that intention does matter. What is your motive? Okay. And so that is where the investigation part comes in. That is where they'll have to go through history and, the antecedents before that actual incident happened. So motive does matter in some cases, but sometimes the act alone is all there is to it.
Yeah.
Context sometimes matters. But one thing I think is important to bear in mind is that, we live in a country where free speech is an important thing for you, for me. You are in a journalistic environment where you want to be able to challenge and push boundaries, but there's some boundaries that we just do not go near. And as somebody like myself who, when I came to England when I was 13 years old, I was living in East London at the time, in Canning Town, and that was at the very height of the National Front. Now, many of your viewers who are young might not remember the National Front because they're not old enough, perhaps. But the National Front, they were the predecessors to the British National Party, the racist organization, and they were, we call them skinheads.
Okay.
So they will wear green and green boots and all this kind of stuff. They'll have some of them will have like a swastika tattoo on the back of their neck and stuff like that. So I actually was chased by the National Front and by some of their thugs in Beckton, in East London back in those days. That was where I actually got called the N-word for the first time in my life. Wow. I never heard of that word before in Nigeria.
Yeah, because you came from, everybody looks like you where you came from.
You don't hear it. So that was my first experience of being chased by these guys. And that, obviously, if the hate crime laws were in place at that time, then it would be different. But yeah, so I understand how incredibly, and I still remember it, and even though that was about 30 years ago.
See, and that took from my other, because I was going to ask you, have you ever experienced or been a victim of hate crime? But like you said, you were chased by these people.
Yeah.
Just because of the colour of your skin and for who you were. Yeah. And that's the thing, like you said, you can't change who you are. So when people are actually treating you a kind of way, I guess that brings me to another question is, why do you think people then commit hate crimes? Is it ignorance? Is it their own insecurity? Yeah. Is it because, what do you think it is?
Okay, this is where my opinion is that all of us are on a journey. All of us are on a journey of learning through life, where there are certain things that I was raised with that is very different to what society is now. Yeah. Right. Perhaps same for you. And I think we have to always allow room for people to make honest mistakes. Yeah. That is just a fact. I lived up in Yorkshire many years ago, and that's when I had a hair. And one of my roommate, that's not funny, man. I had an afro back then, and this dude was a white guy that I was sharing an apartment with, and he'd never been around black people before. Yeah, and he was like, "Festus, can I touch your hair? Yeah, to see what it feels like." Yeah. Now, for some people, they'll find that offensive. For me, I thought it was a great opportunity to actually educate him. Yeah, that actually, this is what my hair feels like, and this is why it's curly or it's where it is. I don't remember what it's like now because I've lost. Can I say
for the people in the back? Yes, it's actually not offensive. It's the fact that the person asked him they asked him first. Yes, which is really important.
Yeah, I'm supposed to just wanted to pad my hair.
Yeah, if they just petting you, they're like no.
But even I guess this is where individual tolerance comes in. True. If someone has padded my hair because they wanted to, if someone comes to do this, without actually asking me. I wouldn't have seen that as a race thing. I would have more felt that they would interfere in my private space. But it depends on who. This is where context matters. It depends who the person is, right? If it was just a random person, on the town centre, just coming to me and just doing this, I'd be like, dude, what's wrong with you, man?
I don't know you like that.
I don't know, like, that's right. But for me, I took it as an opportunity to actually try and educate him and to make him open up the world of blackness to him.
Yeah.
But there's some people who are absolutely just hell-bent on causing distress. They have a motive.
Yeah.
They believe that people that look different to them should not be here. People that sound different to them should not be in this country. That is where, I think the line gets blurred. But it's not an easy one. But what I always say to people is, yes, give people sometimes the benefit of the doubt that people actually are learning about cultures and about difference. But if you feel uncomfortable about anything, you must report it. You must not tolerate it at all.
What do you think actually prevents people from reporting hate crime? Because it's something, for me personally, like, I know some people might be afraid because they don't want the backlash, but I'm sure there are other reasons why. What do you think the barriers are when it comes to that?
I think it's the same for almost any other crime, right? Bedfordshire Police is seeing a record number of calls coming to the force control room. We are now when I first became police commissioner and I was elected in 2021, I think the average number of calls was about 9,000-10,000 a month. Now it's coming to nearly 14,000-15,000 a month. And that's in 2 years. But I believe the amount of crime that actually happens is more than we actually get sighting of. So that is, I think the same thing will also apply to hate crime. I think part of the problem is that people have thresholds. Now, if somebody was to call you the N-word or the P-word, whatever it is, you know straight away that is just not on. Yeah. You will take action on that. But there are different levels to this, which are also not as acceptable. And some people don't see that as a hate crime. Do you see what I mean? So I think that's part of the reason why. And most people now, the kind of hate crime they will probably experience will not be as explicit as me being called the N-word or someone being called, something to do with anti-Semitic, for example. It'll be more the kind of undercurrent, the undertones, the nuances, that kind of stuff that could be getting tolerated by more people, and then they don't report it.
So where some people don't report hate crimes, like you said, you feel like there's a lot more crime that you feel happens than what's reported. And that's based on, like you said, sometimes it's not so, I guess, obvious. Is that what you're saying? Like, sometimes it's not so obvious. Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes people are also afraid because of maybe the barrier between like the police and the community? Do you feel like there's something that needs to...
That could be very much an explanation for that. They feel they're not going to be believed. They think it's probably not a big deal. I've come across people who say, well, I don't want to report that because I know the police are very, very busy with other stuff. Why would they care about this? And my view is that the little things become the big things eventually if it's not checked. So I would say, you just report things, then leave it to the police to decide if it is serious or not, right? Because everyone should have the right in this country to go about their business without being interfered with, without being harassed, without being assaulted. For whatever, I think people should just be able to go about their day-to-day business if they're keeping the law to just get on with their lives. Whether you're a man, you're a woman, you're gay, you're straight, you're trans, whatever the case might be, you should just be able to go and get on with your life without anyone interfering with you. And if that is happening, I think you should consider at least logging a report for your own peace of mind as well. And I think that the more things that we allow to slip by, the more we're going to accept. From other people and how we are treated. So my view would be, look, if you're concerned about something, use the online reporting tool or use the web chat. When I got a web chat thing as well, you can do that, or call 101.
Well, that brings me to the service that we have.
Yes.
So we have a service called the Bedfordshire Community Mediation Service.
Yes, which I proudly commissioned Mary Seacole to help deliver across the county. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And
pleasure. Great organisation. So happy to support.
Thank you. And I feel like it's really great because, like we spoke about some of the barriers in terms of people reporting hate crime, but I feel like also some people are afraid, like I said before, because of the backlash of it. They don't want, you know, the other person to. They don't want to make it worse.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes, as well, I feel like they are unsure. Like you said, because sometimes it's undertones,
yes,
especially when it comes to race, because it is for many reasons that people actually like commit hate crime. It could be your race, it could be your religion, it could be your ability or disability, it could be, you know, your sexuality, gender.
Yeah.
There are so many different reasons, but I feel like some people, because especially when for me, just in my experience as a black woman, for example, because we understand those undertones, that sometimes people might do certain things because you're black, for example, like hold the handbag tight or whatever when you walk past, you know. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like because of that is one of the reasons why people are also afraid. But I also feel like one of the reasons why people also don't report hate crimes is because I feel like there's a barrier between the police and the community, which is why I asked you earlier. I feel like especially with younger people as well, where they might have seen certain things or had a certain experience with the police, or maybe somebody that they know might have had a certain experience with the police, I feel like they're also afraid to now deal with the police.
Let me tell you some of the things that, you know, in Bedfordshire Police, you know, is being done to try and deal with that. So barriers within the public and authorities of any kind have always been there. Whether it's there are barriers between students and teachers, in some cases at school, right? You've got barriers between the public and politicians in some cases. So there is an authority thing generally that we have in society, but because policing tends to be at the coalface of exerting authority, you know, the police are the most obvious tool of authority that we have around us. So it's no surprise to me that the police gets that biggest gap. Okay. But some of the things that we're trying to do in Bedfordshire to deal with that, so I go into schools myself to talk with kids. I've probably spoken to over 5,000 kids in 2 years. I've been to almost 100 schools. I was in Denby High again last week, speaking to the summer program, speaking to about 150 kids in there. Police officers in uniform or not in uniform, as part of what they call the education and diversion team. They go into schools as well to talk with kids. I've accompanied some of our officers, some of the festivals and community events. They go with their police cars. The kids get to come into the police cars and try the siren and all that kind of stuff. They get to try on the police uniform. We have open days just to open police into the community. We also have a fantastic cohesion team, Bedfordshire Police cohesion team as well, who go into communities, go to cultural festivals right across the county, supporting those events, again with the main objective of opening up policing and actually making people realize that the police are not these monsters. That you saw. Of course, there will be one or two, you know, that should not be in policing. But the overwhelming majority want to do a good job, want to support people. And I have been in the uniform myself as a special constable, and I've seen what police officers do to literally save lives of people, black, white, straight, gay, Christian, Muslim, whatever the case might be. So a lot is being done to try and bridge that gap, but there's still clearly more to do, of course.
I think that there needs to be more things that are like you said, they go to schools, they let them come try on the uniform, stuff like that. It's quite fun. It's more relaxed, but I feel like there needs to be more relaxed environments. Like
they've been out to play football as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do they do stuff like that?
Yeah, they've been out to play football, and I think they actually, I think they won. I'm not sure if the officers won on that particular football match with some of the boys. I can't remember where they played that football match. But yeah, they've done that. We actually had one with the VERU, the Violence and Exploitation Reduction Unit, which is led by Kimberly Lamb and her team. There was a Kickoff at 3 event, which is a national football thing to try and get kids off the streets using football. So they had that a couple of weeks ago. I think some police officers were part of that as well. So they're doing more and more of these. Is it enough? No. Can we do a lot more? Absolutely, yes. But I think it's being done, yes, they are.
I appreciate that, but I also appreciate that you're open for more change and more to be done as well. But I think that in life in general, we can always do a bit more.
Oh yes,
of something
absolutely.
Anyway, so I think that's really dope. But yeah, so in terms of what we do, so with the mediation
Yes.
with the mediation service, so people are now able to actually come through and contact us if they're even unsure if it's a hate crime. They're able to I guess gain help reporting hate crime if they're afraid to do so. We're able to help them with other things like if they need to write a complaints letter, or if they need to taking it from reporting to court.
Yeah.
I guess, because if it becomes something sorry, side note, kind of this is why I'm saying that, though, if it becomes something more, so for example, like I said, there's hate incident and hate crime. So a hate incident could just be somebody, I guess, saying a slur like once to you, but then when it becomes harassment, it then becomes a hate crime, because then you're harassing somebody. And so we're able to then, I guess, hold their hand through that process of dealing with that situation. Like I said, reporting it to the police, seeking other services as well, signposting them to other services, because psychologically that's also going to affect you and your mental health as well. Yeah, like
depending on what it is.
Yeah, like,
you know, and if that person is living on your street, for example, you have to walk past their house every day.
Yeah.
You know, how do you deal with that, you know, without your entire life being turned upside down because you're afraid of someone harassing you just because of who you are? So the mediation service, the aim of that really was to try and say, look, there are some things that the police might not be able to deal with, or the police might not be the best place to deal with. So if you can actually get the two parties together, almost kind of like something called restorative justice, where you try to, you have a disagreement, you have issues between people, how can we get the two of you together to resolve this?
Yeah.
You know, without things escalating. Because one thing that we tend to see, especially with young people or disputes between neighbors that actually get out of control, is often over little things that could be dealt with initially. And if we can find a way to get the two people together, or multiple parties together, so look, fine, how do we work through this together so it becomes a win-win situation? It helps to prevent things, you know, escalating.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have seen cases where minor issues on the school playground or some online develops into a tragic thing, you know, in our communities here, unfortunately. So that's part of the reason why we commissioned this with Mary Sequel.
Well, we appreciate that. I think it's a really, really good service. I feel like it's something that was needed, and I feel like it will hopefully encourage more people to actually report hate crimes and hate incidents as well, so that they know what to do, so that it doesn't affect them as much, so that they can move on with their lives as well. Because once something like that, like you said, it can seem so small to somebody, but when you're actually on the receiving end of it, it can actually be a big deal. And then when that's affecting your mental state, that can then affect all of the other things that you're dealing with in life, career-wise, life-wise, if you've got children, whatever.
So I'll give an example where, you know, this kind of a journey for people. So you've got, you know, so I love hip-hop and grime, you know, I'm into that. And some of the artists used, you know, the N-word. Yeah. Right? So say you get a young white boy now who is not really, so who loves that same genre of music. Yeah. He hears those words and he repeats them. Yeah. Okay, he doesn't understand the context of what he's saying. Yeah, that's not. Then he sees a black person and he uses those kind of words almost because that's what he's heard. Right? Now, say that boy's mom, the black boy's mom, heard that young white boy use that word. Is that a hate crime?
No, he just needs to be educated.
This is where you guys could potentially come in. Yeah. So you can bring the two of them together and say, look, actually, you know, this is what you've heard. This is the history behind it. This is the context behind it. That is something that should that boy then have to be dragged to the police for a hate crime? You know, for some people they'll be like, yeah, definitely. You know, that's a.
No, he just needs to be educated, and that person was a hypothetical person, but he just needs to know that like you said, the history of the word, why even some black people use it, because they feel like they're taking the word back. Why some black people don't, why people relate it to another word similar, which is negus, which is king. There's so many different reasons, and then he needs to know why, but that he should just not say it, period. But he should be educated. I watched a video the other day, and this guy, he was singing along to something on his live, and he said it, and then he was like, instantly he was like, oh my God. And he like started losing his mind, because he was like, I never used that word, I promise. He was like, I just got carried away in the song, and then now people are like dragging him about it. But I just feel like it's about being educated, like you said, and him knowing, you know, that it's not appropriate for him to use the word. If a black person wants to use that word, whether if they want to they can, if they don't want to they don't have to, but that he should just not use that word. In my opinion, that's what I think.
I guess for me, you know, around the issue of race, and you know, as someone who is very aware of the history of Britain, who's very aware of my own history as well, my own family history and ancestry and all those kind of things, I also understand that human nature is a journey. Many of us are having to come to terms with changing society that we were not used to.
Yeah, definitely.
And because I know something doesn't mean that you know it.
Precisely.
And it may be just my nature that I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. That like, if you do it once, okay, fine, maybe you need educating, depending on what it is, of course.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we all know the very high level stuff, you know, having a swastika, you know, and, you know, Islamophobic stuff, and, you know,
there's a spectrum.
There's a spectrum of that. I think most people are not on that extreme end.
Yeah.
Most people are not that extreme end. The majority of society are somewhere at the other end or in the middle, where we just have to be mindful that we need to continue educating people about the differences that we have in society and how we can be a more embracing and inclusive society. For me, that's very important. Yeah. If we want to tackle hate crime. Yeah. Because there are those people who they have to definitely get prosecuted and charged, and that has to be dealt with. But to improve those kind of situations, we need to spend a bit more time also educating people about a different society and how, despite the color of my skin, despite, you know, my sexuality, despite my religion, I'm just a human being just like you. Yeah. There really is not much of a difference.
Yeah, I think that it's a catch-22 for me.
And Bring it. Let me hear it.
I say it because when it comes to race, even when it does, I feel like when it comes to race especially, which is the highest, you know, issue when it comes to hate crime, because we did the research, and, you know, when it comes to race, that's like the top reason, and then it goes down to like sexuality, and I think it was race, then religion, then it was like disability, and then it went down. And I feel like there's even books about this. It's like, on one hand, yes, it's important to educate people, because some people just generally don't know. And, you know, they say ignorance is bliss. Ignorance isn't always that choice. It's sometimes that you literally don't know, and you're living in your own little bubble and you don't know. Fair enough. But sometimes it's a case of racism isn't a me issue. Even though I'm affected by it, it's a whoever's being racist issue. Yeah. And so sometimes people might argue the fact, this is where it's a catch-22. I agree on both, to a certain extent, on both sides, that it's not then my job to educate you about something when it's a you issue. Does that make sense? Yeah. But then that would then slightly make me ignorant. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, you know, the black population in Britain is growing. The minority, as people might want to, some people might want to term it, is growing, but it's still, I think, in total about 15%. I believe, based on the last census. The overwhelming majority of this country does not look like Luton at all.
Luton is just a big melting pot.
At all.
Yeah.
The overwhelming majority of Luton, of Britain, does not look like Luton at all. And there are places in the country you will go to where you will not see any form of diversity beyond gender. Yeah. And people would have grown up in a village or in a town where their great grandparents lived.
Yeah.
And everything looks kind of the same.
Yeah.
For some of us, that is not possible.
But it's
Right?
real life.
We've
all been to those places, guys, where you're like, spot a black person or spot
but
the
as human beings at a very human level, what do we do? How do we react when we see something that's different?
Yeah.
How do we respond? You know, sometimes our natural instinct is to just focus on our difference.
Yeah.
And then behave in irrational ways. Okay. This is where your catch-22 becomes a bit more difficult. Right. And so that's something that you've got to try and find a way to deal with. And my way of kind of dealing with that is just, look, you know, I choose to give people the benefit of the doubt, but also recognize that I want to actually share.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So it's not that I'm not saying it's my responsibility to educate you. Actually, I think it's my responsibility to share the wonderful thing that it's like to be, you know, to be black and to be who I am, to be a Christian or to be whatever it is. I want to be able to let you know that it's actually pretty damn cool.
I think it is. It's great. No, I think that's really important. Like you said, to share. When you flip it on its head, it is about that. Like, and that's why I said it's a catch-22, because on one hand, like I said, it is, you know, you feel like, is it my responsibility to educate somebody? But then, like you said, to share something and to be like, well, it's great being me, whether you're black, white, gay, straight, trans. It's great being who I am.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I do think that's
so.
really
So rather than saying that it's my responsibility to educate you, I say it's a pleasure to share with you.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the way I try to look at it. I'm sharing rather than trying to educate people, because there's a slightly different connotation there. But look, you know, I back to where we started. Having had my own very personal experience of hate crime, and the trauma that still creates, I would want to encourage anyone, please don't put up with it.
Yeah.
You know, you might think, oh, well, they're just an idiot.
Yeah.
Or they just, please don't put up with it. Talk to someone about it. Because a lot of these stored up negative experience that we kind of put up with, eventually they will build up.
Yeah.
And they will manifest themselves in a different way.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you then determine how you choose to be treated by other people for what in any context. So if you're not happy with it, if you feel safe enough to do so, speak up and correct that straight away. And if not, please speak to someone. You know, it is possible to get help out there, but certainly please don't suffer in silence. It is totally not acceptable.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us and sharing.
Yes, sharing, not educating, sharing. That's right, yes. Life is good. Life is great.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out and spending time to, you know, let the people know like what they can do. And you've kind of, I feel like some of what you've said is kind of encouraged as well, like the confidence and the self-esteem, so that people know how to treat you. It's about how you deem yourself is really important to then set the example of how people then should treat you.
And if there's one message I'd like to just, you know, share with especially young people who are listening, is look, you know, I'm one of these guys who came to this country as an immigrant from Nigeria at the age of 13 years old, grew up in a pretty rough council estate. I was lucky that I had great parents, but I was also just lucky, generally speaking, in many ways. Started a business when I was 16 years old, and that failed when I was in school. Then played professional basketball when I was about 19, and then stopped doing that. Then I started another business when I was about 23. And that company, when I was going to start that business, I went to a bank in London, because I was still living in Canning Town at the time in East London. And the bank said to me, "We don't do business with people from your postcode."
Wow.
Now I know what that meant.
Yeah.
Back then I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
Right? But I was told we don't do business with people from your postcode. So I had the choice to either give up or try to prove them wrong. I then came across the Prince's Trust, who then gave me the startup funding, about $2,000 back then, to start the business. I grew that company from 3-4 employees in the first year to about 60 employees in 10 years. So when King Charles came to Luton last year, he wanted to see me because he heard about one of his graduates who is now a commissioner for police in Bedfordshire. And the reason why I share that, and I share this with many kids when I go around the schools, look, regardless of who you are, regardless of what your background is, you know, whatever difference you might think you are, you can become whatever you want to become. You know, the sky really is just even the start. You know, if you work hard, if you push through the adversity, the rejections, the hate crime, the hate incidents, the whatever it is, you know, all of those things are just noise.
Yeah.
You don't have to listen to them. You've got to be focused, work hard, make good choices, good education, and don't give up. You know, your life is your story to be written. You don't have to allow other people to dictate and determine your life story for you. And I think it's quite apt that we're talking about this issue in terms of the prejudice that we all face in society. Everybody will face it at some point in their life. You know, it's up to you how you choose to respond to it. It doesn't have to be a full stop on your aspirations.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it just, that experience that I had with that bank turbocharged my life.
So it will make or break, innit?
Yeah, and you can decide that. And to all the young people who are watching this, you can do whatever you put your mind to if you're willing to put the work in. But just be prepared. You're going to have people along the way who are going to try to put you down because of the color of your skin, your gender, your race, whatever it is you are. They will try to find something to put in your way. But you don't have to. You can ignore that and just crack on with what you want to do.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching. We hope that you gained something from this episode. Until next time, peace. If you would like to find out more information, or if you are experiencing a hate crime or a hate incident, please visit the Bedfordshire Community Mediation Service website at communitymediationservice.com.